it's Joanna here from Inspired by Stamping. Today I'm going to share with you 2 tropical cards using a basic masking watercolor technique. And I think you're just going to love these 2 cards. They're simple, easy, and they just have a beautiful impact for you. So we're going to do this beautiful sunset here with the palm trees, and then I'm also going to share with you how I did a little bit more technical one with the second card. We're going to grab our Zig brush clean pens, and we're also going to use our fancy labels 2 and 3 dies to create this effect. And we're also going to be grabbing our Tropical Paradise stamp set. We're going to use the palm tree and the bow and the birds in the background. And we're going to grab our Summer Fun stamp set for the palm trees, and then these teeny tiny greeting stamp sets here for the little sentiments at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in here so that you can see a little bit closer what I'm doing with this tutorial, and I just wanted to share with you what these Zig pins look like. They're beautiful, and I just think they're so vibrant and lovely and really easy to create. If you haven't checked out my Zig pins tutorial 101 that I released last week on our newsletter online classroom, please head on over and do that. It's so fun, and I have lots of tips and techniques of all the different ways that you can use this. Okay, so here we are in the classroom, and I want to share just a few little tips on watercoloring and how to do this. We're going to use watercolor paper. We're also going to use some watercolor paper for our masking too, and I found that this was so important when I did this card. And I'm using this watercolor paper because it's nice and thick and it won't bleed through. Here I used a regular cardstock, and see how that bled through right there, and I ended up making quite a few mistakes. So I discovered it's best to use just plain watercolor paper. It can absorb the excess water and it won't bleed through the lines. You also can use your cutout and also create a second card using the circle and just raise it up on some foam dimensionals too, so you can create 2 cards with one. So here I am just laying down some Post-it notes, the extra large ones. They're great, and I've lined it up straight, and we're all ready to go. And this is just great with the watercolor paper already down. So let me just zoom in a little bit more here for you. Now I'm just going to grab my pen, and we're going to use the light yellow first, and then we're going to use the orange and then the red on the top. And we're going to create a little circular motion like so. So you can see that it's kind of looking like a sun, so you want to have a little bit of a hill going on here with your sunset. And lines are okay to create here because that's what the sky is. It has lines in it, so you don't want to have circular motions here. You want straight lines, and we're going to use a number 12 brush, as you can see, and it's a flat brush, and that's really important too because we really want to paint the scene, and we don't want the brush to go underneath that watercolor paper that we already have taped down. So I'm pressing down pretty firm here and making sure that that watercolor water doesn't go underneath and leach under. Like, you can't see it in this video right now, but I do have a paper towel or a cloth, and I am brushing off a lot of excess water. You don't want that water to run underneath that circle, and that will create quite a mess too. So this watercolor brush is very dry, and you can see here it just blends in beautifully too with the 2 little colors, the yellow and the little bit darker orange, and it blends beautifully. And we just want to go back and forth in those strokes to make sure that it looks like a sky too. Except for the edges, I just want to make sure that I use the brush standing up and we're getting around that circle right there. But all the lines should be going like a sky. We don't want them going vertical when we have horizontal sky. That will look kind of weird. So here I am just brushing it again, just making some beautiful brush strokes. And you can see just going around that edge very, very carefully, and I am taking the majority of the water off that brush, and see how beautiful that's starting to lay down that color, and it's already absorbing. The beautiful thing about these pens is that you can do wet on wet. So this watercolor paper is already wet, and you can put the ink down on your paper, and that's just beautiful. With distress markers, you won't be able to do that as well. And I'm just laying on another second layer here of color and just making it that much more vibrant. And again, we're just going to quickly blend this in. And this is so lovely because it's already starting to bloom out in color, so you really don't have to do too much blending here. It already is doing it for itself. And just keep moving around that color until you feel that it's just beautiful and just the way that you like it. I'm just adding a bit more orange up here at the top because I found it was just a little bit too yellow for me. So I wanted to make it a little bit richer in orange. And again, creating a little bit of a, a hill type of form so that it does look like the sunset. And just dabbing off and just quickly going through and blending that. And just keep blending and blending until you find that you just love it. I keep washing my brush off because I don't want that red to go into that yellow. I do want to have some definite strokes there. And we're just going to peel that off and look how beautiful that is. So I'm going to put that aside and we're going to start working on this card while our sunset is drying. So it's the same form of technique. I'm only going to be using two colors here, the hot pink one and the turquoise. And again, I've already cut that out and I can use that cutout, that die, to create another card just similar as that. So we're just going to line it up again. Grab some Post-it notes, or you can use painter's tape or whatever you feel most comfortable about. And we're just going to lay that down, making sure that it's completely straight. And again, just laying it straight across. So that just kind of helps set it down. And I'm always pressing down along that masking, so making sure that the watercolor doesn't go creep underneath. Now we're going to make a definite line here so that we have a line of where the lake and the sky or the ocean and the sky meets. And I also cut out a 3/4 inch punch where I'm just going to kind of use it for our sunset, where the sun was and where I want that lighter colors to go. So we're just going to again do horizontal strokes, not being too particular, but making sure that that sun or the moon or whatever you would like it to be is kind of a little bit lighter in those areas. And that's just kind of letting me gauge where I want the light colors to lay down and the darker colors to be. And again, just making sure that we brush in horizontal strokes. We don't want vertical strokes here on the ocean because that wouldn't look right, because you will be able to see some of the line work that you did put down. And so we're just going to smooth this over, just kind of blending it in and blending it in, and we're going to create a few layers over and over again here. And again, as I just love these pens, you can just, it's wet, my watercolor paper is wet, and look how beautiful that is, that I can lay down more color while that paper is wet. They are just like watercolors. And again, we're just going to leave that little area where I see that reflection from the sun and have a little bit lighter ocean colored water here. And again, making sure that that brush is dry, pretty dry. We don't need a whole lot of water here. So I am using a piece of paper or a piece of paper towel, and I am, dabbing off a lot of that excess water. I don't need a whole lot here. And putting line strokes in, and being very particular about my line strokes here, you can see. And then we're just going to go back in and just blend those in. And now I'm having a little bit more definite line strokes. And I'm just going to take that off, and I'm going to get this re-wet because I want to make sure that there's no more dark ink on my brush, so I have a nice clean brush. And we're just going to kind of pull in some of that color there. And then there we have a little bit of the reflection from the sun. So I'm just going to wait for this to dry, and I'll be right back. So here we are. It's nice and dry. I don't want to lay a Post-it note over my color because it will lift off a lot of that ink, and I want to make sure that that ocean ink is very nice and dry. So I'm just going to put a Post-it note, making sure that it's perfectly straight. And then now we're just going to put our beautiful hot pink sky in there, making sure that we're going again in those horizontal lines. Sorry, I keep repeating myself, but it's very important that we lay down our color in the direction of form. That's just so important for any form of coloring. So we're just going to kind of blend it in again, making sure we don't get our water underneath those edges there. So I'm pressing down to make sure none of that water goes down and watercolor goes underneath there. And my watercolor brush is again very dry. I am dabbing that off. You can't see it's on the side of the board right there. Just making sure we got straight edges, picking up that brush and making sure that it doesn't go in there, and concentrating on that lighter area of pink, not putting a whole bunch of color down there because that's where our sun is. and just going over it. And again, you can see a lot of lines here, so I'm going to apply a different layer on the top of it. Again, just coloring it in, making sure that we're going in the right direction of form, creating some definition here, and getting our watercolor brush wet and just blending it in. And I have created a few layers. I think that 2 or 3 layers of the zig pens make it a very beautiful bright color. But if you're looking for something that's not, as bold, just put 1 layer of the ink down and that will be just as beautiful. Okay, so I just want to keep blending in and just keep blending in and keep blending until I feel like it's beautiful. And I'm just going to add just a little bit more details here, just kind of creating some more ink around the edges and just making sure my line work is beautiful. You will be able to see this line work when it does dry, so it's very important. And now I'm just going to peel that off, and you see how we have a beautiful circle here, but we wanted to blend it in with the sky just a little bit more, so I am going to rub it over very, very carefully, going along the edge. We do want to be able to see that it's pink because it has to blend in. We don't want it to be too bold. And then there we have it. Now we're just going to peel that off and let that dry again. And now we can go back to our sunset, which will be nice and dry for us. So now we can stamp on it with our mini Misty, which I just absolutely love and adore. So I'm just going to grab my mini Misty here, and I'm just going to place that in there. And let me just zoom out quickly so that you guys can see perfectly here. And we're going to use my Summer Fun stamp set with the palm trees, and we're going to place that right smack in the center here. We're going to pick that up, and then we're just going to grab some ink. Here it goes. And then you can see my towel on the side where I was dabbing off a lot of that excess water. We're just going to press down, and watercolor paper is very textured, so it's very, very good idea to ink it up twice here, and then you get a richer, beautiful black inked picture. Now I'm just going to grab our teeny tiny greetings, and we're just going to place that in the middle underneath, lining that up perfectly, and then picking that up again. And then flipping it over, and then just stamping. And then there we have it. Now we don't need to do, I also did, when I put this together, I also did some lines with our score pail, and I also put them up on foam dimensionals. So this is nice and dry right now, but actually what I did is I realized that I wanted to stamp those palm trees on there, so I ended up taking it off and I ended up redoing it. So here I am, I'm redoing it, making sure it's nice and dry, and I want to put that back over there, that masking, and we're just going to pull that down just a little bit farther. This is because we want to have that ink palm trees go all the way around the edge. So we're just going to gauge and see where we would like that. So when you pull that just a little bit down, you can see some of that white space on the bottom of that picture there. So we're just going to ink that up again with some ink. We're just going to kind of gauge where we want it. And then we're just going to press down. And then we're just going to ink it up on the other side here. And again, press down. And now we have just how it curves all the way at the end. And that's a trick that you'll find, that if you just move that piece of paper down just a little bit, you'll be able to ink up your image all the way around the border of that. And now we just need our sailboat here. We're just going to ink that up again. And what I did with our picture here, with the sailboat, is I did color it in completely black because I didn't want the blue to be showing through of the sailboat. So I did go through with a pen and I did color that sailboat in. So I'm just going to grab a smaller acrylic block here. Sorry about that. And we're going to just grab our birds. I didn't want to stamp on a very large acrylic block, so I needed to grab a smaller one. And again, I'm just inking it up with some Memento ink here. And we're just going to go in the side here and stamp that too. And you can also color those birds in completely black because this is a silhouette card. So we really want them all to be black. And so now I'm going to grab that mini Misty here, and we're going to stamp our sentiment perfectly on the bottom, making sure that it's nice and straight, and we're just going to put it over in the corner here. So I'm just going to grab the tiny teeny greetings, and I apologize for not zooming out here, I totally forgot. And we're just going to line that up, making sure it's perfectly straight. And again, just picking it up with our other side, and then we're just going to ink it up quickly with our black ink. And just flip it over, and we have Just For You. And again, I use a score pile for this, and I ended up putting some lines on my first card, and I also added some foam dimensionals here. And I think that you can jazz it up as much as you want, or you can leave it completely plain. The choice is yours, whatever you want to do. So I really hope that you've enjoyed today's tutorial sharing a simple masking technique with watercolor background. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave me an email or a comment below. And don't forget to follow us on all our social media accounts. We love hanging out at Instagram and Facebook. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon.